May 2021. Deep inside Nigeria's Sambisa forest, a man is surrounded. Abubakar Shekau, the feared leader of Boko Haram, paces alone in a hidden bunker. His body is under tension, his eyes wide, and strapped tightly to his chest is a body-worn explosive device. Outside, hundreds of armed individuals close in, not the Nigerian army, but his fellow jihadists. They belonged to ISWAP, Islamic State West Africa province. They are here to take him alive. But Shekau has no intention of surrendering, not to them, not to anyone. With a final prayer, he pulls the detonator. Abubakar Shekau detonates an explosive device. His final act isn't just a tragic end, it is a rebellion. Rebellion against the very caliphate he once pledged allegiance to. But how did we get here? To understand why Boko Haram's most feared leader chose a tragic end in defiance of ISIS, we must rewind, not to the day he pledged allegiance, not to the day he split from Al-Qaeda, but from the very beginning when global jihad first cast its eyes on Nigeria. It started with a preacher, Muhammad Yusuf, teaching that Western education was sin, a local movement, a Puritan message. But lurking in the shadows were whispers from afar: Al-Qaeda, Hakim, trained jihadist, foreign money. A quiet infiltration had begun. After Yusuf's execution in 2009, the movement fell into chaos. But from that ruins emerged a new leader, Abubakar Shekau, ruthless, unpredictable, obsessed with power. And that is where everything began to unravel. Shekau's rise would see Boko Haram become one of the world's most feared insurgent groups. But it would also see him clash with Al-Qaeda, reject ISIS, and silence everyone who questioned him, including his own men. The United States placed a $7 million reward on his head. Nigerian military spent over a decade trying to capture him. Cities trembled at his name. A whole region fell under his control. He outlasted airstrikes, surveillance, infiltrators. He escaped every trap until May 2021. He fell into a trap set by his very own. The same men he trained, same men he once commanded, the same people who once followed him into battle, turned their weapons on him. Not for justice, not for peace, but for a new flag and a different master. Shekau, cornered, defiant, broken, chose explosion over submission. This is the story of power, betrayal, and the collapse of one of the most feared warlords in African history. He eliminated himself deep in the forest. But what darkness created a man like Abubakar Shekau? What force twisted faith into fury? What movement turned schoolyards into battlegrounds and prayers into weapons? Before Shekau became the face of chaos, before the bounty, before the betrayals, there was a beginning. And in this video, we will not only make you understand why Abubakar Shekau chose death over submission, but make you understand why his story is far from being over. What do you think of when you hear the name most dangerous terror group in the world? Is it Hamas, Al-Qaeda, maybe even ISIS? But for much of the 2010s, the right answer wasn't any of those. It was a group born deep in the heart of Nigeria, Boko Haram. A name that would become synonymous with fear, destruction, and heartbreak. A name that would send shockwaves across Africa and the world. But how did a relatively unknown group go from preaching in mosque to bombing United Nations building, storming schools, and abducting hundreds of schoolgirls? How did they turn northeastern Nigeria into a battle zone and bring the country to its knees? Let's take it back to the very beginning. It all started quietly in the early 2000s. Boko Haram was just one of the several Islamic groups inspired by earlier movements like Yan Izala, a reformist group popular since the 1980s that wanted to purify Islam in Nigeria. They rejected Western education, rejected democracy, even rejected medicine and science. To them, everything that smelled like colonialism was corruption. But while Izala stopped short of using force, some of its followers were ready to take things further. That's when a group called Jama'atu Ahli Sunnah Lidawati wal Jihad emerged, or as the local media names them, Boko Haram, which translates to Western education is forbidden. In 2003, a former young Izala preacher named Muhammad Yusuf took charge. Yusuf had charisma, religious fire, and a dangerous message. He didn't just preach, he preached war. He positioned himself as a radical alternative to the Nigerian state. The tension exploded in 2003 when his followers clashed with the Nigerian police in the town of Kanama. This fight pushed his movement underground, but it didn't stop it. If anything, it only made them stronger. Between 2004 and 2008, Boko Haram quietly grew into power. They attacked in small bursts, then disappeared, and while the world ignored them, Yusuf and his top followers traveled to other countries, learning from the wars, studying tactics, building networks, planning something big. Everything changed in 2009. One version of the story said that it started with something as little as a helmet violation. Boko Haram members riding bikes refused to wear helmets. Police tried to stop them. A fight broke out. But to Yusuf and his followers, this wasn't just about helmets. It was a battle. That July, Boko Haram launched revenge attacks across the northeast. Police stations burned, armed confrontations in the streets. Dozens died. Chaos reigned. Nigeria security forces responded swiftly. By July 30th, they captured Yusuf, but instead of justice, they delivered execution. Yusuf was silenced with no hesitation in police custody. Many thought Boko Haram would die with Yusuf, but in reality, his death gave birth to something even worse. His deputy, Abubakar Shekau, took control. Cold, calculated, fanatical, he promised blood and he delivered.
Jonathan! Christian, bring back our army.
Under Shekau, Boko Haram didn't just attack security forces. They started targeting civilians, explosive attacks on churches, burning villages, and abducting schoolgirls. And the world finally noticed.
This organization, Boko Haram, has been one of the worst regional or local terrorist organizations in the world. We've long sought to work with Nigeria on dealing with them.
In 2010, they attacked Nigeria with explosives on Christmas Eve. In 2011, they attacked the UN buildings in Abuja. A car explosion silenced 23 people. This was the second explosion triggered by the attacker in Nigerian history. Boko Haram had done the first just weeks earlier, and now the whole world was watching. By 2014, they abducted over 270 schoolgirls from Chibok, sending shockwaves across the globe. Bring Back Our Girls trended worldwide, but the girls didn't come back. At least, not most of them. Some were forced into early marriages, others used for propaganda. They became a symbol of Nigeria's helplessness and Boko Haram's power. Boko Haram didn't care about borders. They struck in Nigeria, then crossed into Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. No one was safe. Bus stations, mosques, schools all became targets. And the most horrific part of it, they made school kids explosive device carriers. Even girls as young as 7 years old. They didn't just fight the military. They hunted down traditional rulers, moderate Muslims, and medical workers. To Shekau, even polio vaccines were Western attacks. By 2015, Boko Haram had declared a caliphate in northeastern Nigeria. Boko Haram was on top of the world, if you can call it that. They had captured territory the size of Belgium in northeastern Nigeria. They had abducted girls, attacked cities, and struck fear into millions. But deep inside the group, cracks were beginning to show. To understand what happened next, we need to take a step back and meet a new player. One whose shadow loomed over every jihadist movement of the 21st century, ISIS. Who is ISIS and why did Boko Haram join them? ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, shocked the world in 2014 when it captured major cities like Mosul and declared a new caliphate, a so-called Islamic empire that rejected borders, democracy, and modern law. They claimed they were reviving the glorious days of early Islam. In their minds, every Muslim around the world had a duty to join them or pledge loyalty, and incredibly, many did. Terror groups from Libya, Egypt, Afghanistan, even the Philippines and Somalia began swearing alliances with ISIS, hoping for support, weapons, and global recognition. And in March 2015, Abubakar Shekau, the leader of Boko Haram, did just the same. He announced,
"We announce our allegiance to the Caliphate. We will hear and obey in times of difficulty and prosperity."
From that moment, Boko Haram became ISIS in West Africa, or at least that's what Abubakar Shekau thought. But here is the twist. Even ISIS thought that Abubakar Shekau was too extreme. Yes, even ISIS, known for gruesome acts of violence, painful death by hanging on a cross, and medieval punishment, thought that Abubakar Shekau had gone too far. Why? Because Shekau wasn't just taking the lives of soldiers, he was silencing even innocent Muslims by thousands. He sent explosive device carriers into mosques, markets, schools. He used little girls wearing explosive vests as human weapons. Even ISIS, in all their cruelty, had rules. They believed civilians, especially Muslims, should not be targeted without reason. But Shekau didn't care. He viewed everyone who disagreed with him as an infidel, even ISIS supporters, and he wouldn't even listen to others. So in 2016, ISIS made a dramatic move. They sent a message to Boko Haram leaders in Nigeria. Shekau is no longer your leader. We've appointed someone else. His name, Abu Musab al-Banawi, the son of Boko Haram original founder Mohammed Yusuf. Abu Musab was calmer, more strategic. He criticized Shekau for silencing fellow Muslims and promised a more disciplined jihad. With ISIS backing, a full-blown split erupted. Now, there were two rival factions fighting in the name of jihad. Shekau's Boko Haram, unpredictable, ruthless, and chaotic, and ISWAP, the Islamic State West Africa province, loyal to ISIS, more organized and more focused on attacking only military targets. ISWAP wasn't just another terror group, it was more like a shadow government. They set up tax system, distributed food, even ran courts based on their version of Islamic law. They didn't bomb schools or mosques. Instead, they targeted military convoy, army bases, and government officials. To local communities suffering under Shekau's terror, ISWAP started to look like a lesser evil. Some even welcomed them. They would say, at least ISWAP don't blast our kids in the market. And so ISWAP began to grow, absorbing fighters, weapons, and territories once held by Boko Haram. And then a Cold War becomes hot. ISWAP vs Boko Haram. What started as an ideological split turned into a full-blown battle. By 2008, ISWAP and Boko Haram were fighting each other just as much as they were fighting the Nigerian military. ISWAP called Shekau a heretic. Shekau called ISWAP traitors. The battlefield shifted from cities to Sambisa forest, Boko Haram's last stronghold, and then came the final battle. May 2021, ISWAP launched a daring offensive deep into Sambisa. They weren't there to take land, they were there for Shekau. They found his camp, surrounded it, cut off his escape routes. Shekau's loyalists fought, but many surrendered. Others defected on the spot. Then they gave him an ultimatum: surrender, join us, or die. Shekau chose a third option. He set off his wearable explosive vest.
Bring back our army.
After 12 years of terror, it was all over, but not the war. Shekau is dead, but Boko Haram isn't gone, and ISWAP, they are just getting started. They've evolved from rebels into a full-fledged terrorist state. So now the question is Nigeria safer, or has the monsters simply changed faces? Abubakar Shekau is gone. The forest he once ruled is silent, but silence isn't peace. In the ashes of one empire, another quietly rises, more organized, more calculated, and far more dangerous than the world is ready for. This is not the end of the story. This is the evolution of it. So the question isn't just what happens next in the battle. It is, what kind of future are we building to replace it? If you found this story powerful, eye-opening, or thought-provoking, hit the like button. Subscribe for more deep dives into stories the world forgets. And let us know in the comments, what do you think it will take to bring long-lasting peace in the Lake Chad region?